Most people think Babel means confusion. It doesn't. In Hebrew, it means gate of God. And that is exactly why God came down, to break the gate that men had built without him. Genesis chapter 11. The Lord came down to see what they were building. He saw a tower stacked brick by brick. He saw a people who had all agreed to climb to heaven on their own terms. And he said, "This cannot stand." Down on the plain, the work went on. No one heard him coming. One man, somewhere in the crowd, looked up. He could not name what he felt, but something was about to change everything. Babel. The word means two things at once. The builders heard gate of God, but God heard the Hebrew root balal, to confuse. The pun is the judgment. Then he said, "Let us go down, and let us confound their language." He did not strike them. He did not burn the tower. He simply touched the words between them, and the whole project fell apart in a single afternoon. Balal. To mix, to confuse, to break apart. One man asked for a brick. The other heard a curse. A father called his son's name. The son did not turn around. The syllables that built the tower now broke the family, and the Lord scattered them across the face of the earth. What they had refused to do willingly, they now did under judgment. The scattering they feared became the very thing that saved them. Sometimes mercy looks like exile, and they stopped building. Genesis 11, verse 8. As it is written, "The name of the place is Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth." The gate to heaven became a monument to the God who closed it. Time passed, generations went by, the towers stood, and then it didn't. Ivy climbed the lower walls. The upper stones fell, one by one. What had been a monument became a warning, written in the dust of the plain. And out of Babel came every language we have ever spoken. Languages were not invented at Babel. They were inflicted there. The tongue you think with is, in some quiet way, a souvenir from the tower God did not let stand. But every judgment in Scripture has its undoing. At Babel, languages were broken apart. At Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, the same Spirit would speak every language at once, and Babel was reversed. But Pentecost is 1,000 years away. For now, the tower lies broken, and on the road out of Shinar, a man is walking. His father is named Terah. His own name is Abram. The word has not yet come to him, but it is coming soon. And the next chapter opens with that man walking away from all of this. As it is written, "The Lord said to Abram, 'Leave your country, your family, your father's house.'" We come back to him soon. First, walk back with me to how the tower began. Walk back with me. Long before God came down, they came from the east. They found a wide, flat plain in the land of Shinar. Not a desert, not a mountain, just a land where nothing rises unless men build it. And so they began to build. And they said to one another, "Come, let us build a city. Let us build a tower." Genesis chapter 11, verse 4. Let us build a city and a tower that reaches into heaven. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered. Lest we be scattered. That was the fear under everything they built. God had said, "Fill the earth." They said, "No, let us not be filled. Let us stay here together and build something nothing can move us from." Shem. The Hebrew word means a name. But a name in Hebrew is more than a label. A name is a memory, a presence, a way of being remembered after you are gone. Every wrong project begins as a real fear, dressed up as a plan. They were afraid of being small, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of a God who said, "Go out and trust me." So instead of trusting him, they built a tower, its top reaching into the heavens. In Hebrew, Rosho Bashamayim. This was not just a tall building. It was a ladder, a bridge, a gate forced open from below, so they could climb up to where God lived on their own terms. And they named the place Babel, the gate of God. They wrote that name in stone, in their own tongue, in their own city. The gods would come, but only on the builder's terms. That was the promise of the tower. Bricks made the project possible. Bricks are equal. Stones are not. A stone is what God gives. A brick is what man makes. With bricks, the size is yours. The shape is yours. The reach is yours. Nothing in creation left to honor. And the people gathered. They stood at the base of it and looked up. Together. There is a holy way to stand together, and there is an unholy way. The holy way kneels. This crowd stared up at what their hands had built and called the climb worship, and they began to climb. The work went on day and night. The fear at the base of it kept the bricks moving. Lest we be scattered, lest we be forgotten, lest we be small under heaven. And the children were taught the name, the city, the tower, the project. But somewhere on the edge of that city, a young man was being prepared. Scripture will not tell us where, only that he was there, quietly, watching. His name was Abram. He had not been called yet. Before God broke the tower, God was already preparing the man who would carry the answer to it. The tower would fall. Abram would be sent out. But first, God came down to see, as it is written. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the sons of men had built. He came down. The God whose throne is the heavens came down to look. After Babel, the world began to fill. The tower had been built, the names had been broken, and now the families went out. Every tongue a door, every land a beginning. But before Babel, there had been a quieter scattering, a deeper one. Genesis chapter 10 lists 70 nations descending from Noah's 3 sons. The Hebrew word for them is goyim, the families, the peoples. Goyim. Not enemies. Not yet. The Goyim are the nations as God intended them, spread out, multiplied, planted in lands of their own. Genesis 10 is the map. Genesis 11 is what happened when men refused it. God said, "Be fruitful, fill the earth." Some obeyed. Others stopped at a plain in Shinar and decided the filling could wait. That decision broke them. Shem moved east. Ham moved south. Japheth moved north and west. 70 nations from 3 brothers. Hebrew tradition counts 70 because that is the number of completion for the peoples of the earth. Every nation began with someone willing to walk away from what was known. This was always the design. Spread out, take root, build cultures under one sky. Different tongues were not the punishment alone, they were a flowering. Difference was never the curse. The refusal of difference. That was the curse. The Lord made a world wide enough for many voices. Babel was not the birth of those voices. Babel was the moment one voice tried to silence the rest. Ham's line settled the south. Cush and Mizraim and Canaan. And out of Ham came Nimrod, the first man Scripture calls a mighty one, a hunter, a king, a builder of cities even after Shinar's lesson. The building never ends, empire after empire, the same bricks, the same fear. Nimrod built the cities of Shinar, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, the first imperial shadow after the breaking. What Babel did to language, history would do to kingdoms. Every age has its tower. Every tower has its scattering. Read the rest of the Old Testament with Babel in mind. Every empire that rises will think it is the one. Every empire that rises will be brought down. The pattern is set, and still, somewhere among the Goyim, a man was being prepared. Out of one tribe, of one family, of one line, of one nation, God would call one man, not to build another tower, to walk into a land he could not see. And the tower itself? It stayed, for a while, a monument no one finished. Generation after generation passed by. Some climbed, some prayed, some forgot what it had been built for. But the lesson held in the stones: Heaven's gate is never forced. They had bricks, they had bitumen, they had a plan, as it is written, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." They had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Stone has limits, bricks they could multiply. In Ur of the Chaldees, an old man stood at his doorway holding a lamp. His name was Abram. He was 75 years old. He had a wife and no children. He had a father, a brother, a home. And he had no idea that everything was about to change. Then the word came. Not a thunderclap, just a voice. Soft, undefined, certain. And he stood very still, because the one who had spoken to Noah was now speaking to him. And what he said was only 2 words long. Lech lecha. 2 small words that turned an old man into a nation. In Hebrew, it means go for yourself. Not just leave. Go become who you are meant to be. This same phrase will appear only one other time in the whole Torah: out of your country. The Hebrew is me'artzecha. The country is empire. Ur of the Chaldees, ziggurats, citizenship, the protection of belonging. To leave a country is to step out from under all of it, out of your kindred. The Hebrew is mi moladtecha, your birth people. Country can be left in a day. Kindred takes weeks of farewells. Every face you knew, every story you carried. He had to leave the rooms that made him, and out of your father's house. The Hebrew is mibet avicha. Father's house is the deepest cut. Country, kindred, household, 3 concentric severings. The closer the cut, the deeper God works. Every other altar must go cold. To a land that I will show thee. He did not know where. He left with no map. The Lord said go, and Abram went. Hebrews chapter 11 calls this faith. To walk obediently into geography you cannot yet name. And I will make of thee a great nation. Hebrew, goy gadol. Notice the word. Goy, singular. The same root as goyim, the nations Babel scattered. Out of one old man, God would build a goy through which every other goy would come home. And I will bless thee. The Hebrew is va avarecha. Blessing in Hebrew is not a wish. It is a transfer. Power, favor, increase, life. To be blessed is to carry something heavier than yourself on behalf of others, and make thy name great. Va'agadela shimecha. The Shem the builders of Babel tried to seize, God simply gives. The reach they wanted from a tower, Abram receives from a tent. And thou shalt be a blessing. The Hebrew is veheye beracha, be a blessing. Imperative. A blessing is not what you receive and keep. A blessing is what passes through you to people who do not yet know they are about to be carried. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. Every soul who touches the seed of Abram is touched in return, for good or for ruin. Israel becomes the channel. The nations are not bystanders anymore. And then comes the line that holds the whole Bible together, as it is written, "In thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed." Becha nivrechu kol mishpechot ha'adamah. Every family scattered at Babel, blessed in one man. And so an old man walked into a land called Canaan, and the promise began. 11 words in English. The Lord said, "In you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Through one man, every family. Through one nation, every nation. At Babel, men tried to make a name for themselves and were scattered. At Abram, God promised a name and a seed. And through that one seed, the 70 nations Babel had scattered would one day come home. Beracha. It means blessing, from the root barak, to kneel. To bless is to bend towards someone, to pour into them. A blessing is never for the one who holds it. It is given through them. And this blessing was never just for Abram. It was always about the families of the earth. The covenant was a conduit. Every word God spoke into one tent was already aimed at every tent. From Abram came Isaac. From Isaac, Jacob. From Jacob, 12 tribes. And from the tribe of Judah, a king named David. And from David's line, one final son, not yet visible to history, but already promised in a tent in Canaan. Galatians chapter 3 calls Jesus the seed of Abraham. The blessing promised to Abram is fulfilled in one descendant. Not Israel as a nation, but Christ as the seed. In him, every family receives what Abram once carried alone. And on the day of Pentecost, the fire fell, and the tongues returned. They were gathered in one place. The Spirit came down. They began to speak in other tongues. Every nation Babel scattered heard the gospel in its own language. Babel reversed. What Babel broke apart, Pentecost is sewing back together. Not one language under heaven. One Spirit through many languages. Not a tower climbing up. A gift coming down. The gate the builders could not force open, God Himself walks through, because the gate had a cost. The blessing had a price. Galatians 3:13. Christ became a curse for us, so the blessing of Abraham could come on the nations through faith. Babel cursed the world. The cross blesses it, and the seed of Abram rose from the grave on the third day. Every promise the Lord made to Abram in a tent, every blessing, every nation, every name, finds its yes inside the empty tomb. All God's promises in Him are yes. Today, every nation under heaven has someone who calls on Abram's God. The promise made in a tent 3,700 years ago is being fulfilled while you watch this. You are a family of the earth. The blessing still walks, the seed still spreads, and He will gather what Babel scattered, until every tongue confesses His name. Philippians chapter 2. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. The languages that fractured at Babel will, in the end, agree on one name. Not Babel, Jesus. We are walking through Genesis in Hebrew every Sunday. Subscribe to support this calling. Leave a comment. Even one word tells me we are reaching hearts. Thank you for watching. God bless you.